So much for calling. Really appreciate it. And let me just continue on with the phone call. So let me first remind you, I'm speaking with Rob Szymanski, who's the founder of Clear Financial Advisors. The number here is 1-844-WHARTON. That's 1-844-942-7866. Remember, live on Tuesday, so give us a call here. And let me go with Joey in Florida. How can we help you, Joey?
Hey, Kent. Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
Great.
Calling today because I am actually getting ready to get my CPA, and I wanted to kind of reward myself with a trip to Europe after I get the CPA. But in addition, I would like to buy a house in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm calling to get some advice kind of on how to best prioritize the balance between, paying down like my current debt, saving for an emergency fund, and then obviously having money for a down payment on a home and, vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, you say you're on the verge of getting your CP. Have you already completed all the exams and you're just trying?
So I've completed 3 of 4.
Okay. So,
Yes.
always wait until you make sure you get through all 4 exams. The CPA is certainly a challenging certification to get. Okay, so but more seriously, let's focus on priorities here. So tell us about your debt. How much debt we're we talking about? What interest rate?
Sure. So I don't have any credit card debt. I have a car loan at about 3.5%,
Okay.
$8,000. And then I have 2 student loans. One from undergrad, it's about $13,000 at about 4%.
Mm-hmm.
And then my graduate level, I have about $3,000, and that's at 6.5%.
Okay. So you said 3,000, not 30, right?
Correct. Just
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And in terms of your kind of emergency saving, do you have at least a couple months of expenses off to the side?
Yeah. So right now, I actually only have about 1 month worth of expense.
Okay. Okay.
And then I have about $15,000 in a 401k that I'm maxing out for my employer contribution purposes, but not the entire max.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're getting an employer match, which is great, but potentially some more room there. And certainly that graduate school debt is 6.5%. I would want to try to knock that off. It's only $3,000, thank goodness, but that in your emergency account, we want to get that up as well. And obviously, we want to get you saving for retirement, all the things that we usually talk about on the show. But let's talk about your trade-offs between a house and going on a trip. And so, a lot of this comes down to preferences. Trips are memories, and there's, a lot of times advisors will say, that's, maybe frivolous spending, things like that. Well, maybe not, especially if it's kind of a once in a lifetime thing, and you're not going too dramatic. You're not staying at the 4 seasons at every location and so forth. And so the question is, in my mind there, let's just, I understand the normal kind of thrill level of going on a trip. Let's just think about the house. Why do you maybe want to consider a house? Are you married? Do you have kids? What's the point?
No, I'm single. But I've been renting, and I feel like the cost of rents are much more expensive than the cost of mortgage when done appropriately. But ultimately, I want to build up equity in a home.
Sure.
I don't want to wait too long, considering interest rates rising in the future.
Good. So, Rob, this one's a little bit harder because it's really somewhat about preferences. But do you have thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. So I you see this a lot, especially as people are just getting out of school and starting. That they're trying to do the right things and stretched in all different directions to have that short-term bucket filled up, the long-term retirement bucket savings. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's just so important that you do that at the same time you're trying to meet your short-term emergency savings goals and still trying to do the things that you want to do. I would encourage you, I don't like to use the budgeting B word, but look at all of your financial priorities right now and try to set a target for about 15 to 25%, call it 20% of your budget that's going towards these financial obligations that you've got. And what you'll find is if you can get that into place as you're starting out, as the student loan payments drop off, as the things that the fun things the trip and the car loan go away, you're going to be setting yourself up pretty nicely for the future. But I've got to say, I'm looking at all the numbers here. I think it's important to take that trip, but I would think I think you're hitting on something here with the purchase of a home. Another thing you hear from people starting out as well, that they feel like they're throwing away money on rent, but oftentimes I find younger people don't consider all the true costs to owning a home.
Yeah.
My two brothers are CPAs, and I'll share. I know there's a lot of opportunities once you get out there in the accounting world, and you may find a home at this stage may hold you back from greater opportunities down the road that you may want to jump on. So
Yeah.
I would think twice about that home goal. I'm glad you're maxing out the 401k, and glad you're considering taking a trip and rewarding yourself for your accomplishment here. But that's where I come down.
Yeah, I'm glad because completely on the same page. Joey, here's how I would order things. One is we always like to have that emergency account, as Rob pointed out, kind of that short-term bucket covered. And, it's a general rule of thumb, but having 3 months of expenses, not bad. If you told me you're still looking for work or need to have some more flexibility, that may actually go up to something like 6 months. That would be your first step. I would, also then a second step, encourage you just knock out that $3,000 worth of debt, $6,500. I'm sorry, 6.5% interest. Not a lot. It should be easy kind of to knock it out. That would be my second step. My third step then would be to try to, make sure you're not just getting an employer match, but you're on a decent path for your 401k. And that may even be trying to get up to the $18,000 kind of maximum contribution, something like that. But the fourth step, and really what you called about, is I'm with Rob. It's trip, not house. And if you told me you were married, if you told me you're kind of settled or you have kids, then that's going to lead me kind of the opposite way. But the problem is when you buy a house as a single person, and I'll tell you a bit from experience, and then you get married, your spouse may have different opinions about that house. And so, like me, you might have to sell and kind of and move and so forth. And as Rob points out, it sounds like you're a bit younger. You want to just keep yourself flexible. And having a CPA, you might find that, Florida is great, but maybe a different part of Florida or moving to somewhere else. And so I would feel guilty about doing the trip. I would go with the trip. And by the way, there's ways of being smart about trips. In particular, you can sign up for different websites like travelzoo.com, TripAdvisor, and so forth, and get alerts. So if you say, I really want to go to the Greek Isles, just get an alert. So whenever Greek Isle goes on sale, you're going to get an alert and kind of look for those deals, because those are going to happen several times a year. And so that's how I'd prioritize things. Is that helpful, Joey?
Yes, that's very helpful. I've actually been, I plan on using credit card miles to pay for most of the trips, so that should be helpful.
Yeah.
But in the event that I do prioritize saving for a home, would you recommend doing that like in a Capital One 360 account, or would you recommend doing something a little bit more risky?
Yeah, it really depends, and I'll take this one, Rob, really quickly here. It really depends how long from now you're going to want to buy that home. So what I love is if you can make a 20% down payment, so you can avoid the PMI. That's just kind of money that you're going to be saving dramatically. So if you can do the 20% down payment, and if you're telling me, you know what, you're okay postponing the house purchase another year or two if investments don't do so hot, then, and your horizon is maybe like 5 years from now or something of that nature, then something like, a total bond fund, like a Vanguard total bond fund, I guess I'm okay with that. And, it's not as risky as stocks, but it's not low risk either. And if you're telling me you don't absolutely have to have a house, you're not married, you don't have kids, then I'm willing to take on that risk, because you're willing to postpone your purchase if the fund decreases. But if you're telling me you need to have this house within 18 months to 2 years, then yeah, I would just go with a kind of a higher yield savings account and not take any chances there. So thanks so much for calling, Joey. Really appreciate it. And